Okay, so I'm just just someone who I really don't even know how to talk in these videos. In fact, I'm not going to talk about myself for that reason, because I'm so mind controlled and so enmeshed in what is around me, and so aware that this has taken over even the computer, that it is just total mind control, total trans connection, joining with with humans, that your mind is connected to this. Now, I have been interested and drawn to the truth naturally because of my own predicament. But having been drawn to the truth, I find that the truth tellers, whatever form they take, they will read the truth, they will be spiritual readers, they will be spiritual philosophers, they will be spiritual psychologists. They will combine everything they can now in whatever area they're in. That's how I know that it is transhumanism, or the computer and everyone and everything infiltrating your mind, or my mind, depending on who you are. If you are an artificial spiritual android teller of truth, regardless of what form, because look, I'm listening to my own life story almost here whenever I watch the spiritual readers even. This is just an example I'm using. As you know, I'm trying to show what I think are the best of them, because I like to think that I'm picking the best. Or the best picks me, maybe even, because don't forget, all this that's on the computer, on the screen, and all that's around you, they target you too. So you pick them, but they also pick you. So I would like to think that as I find out more of the so-called truth, well then of course then the truth has to be relayed back to me, whether it be through spirituality, and truth has to be relayed back to me, regardless of what form it takes. If I are watching a psychological video, or trying to learn about the artificial intelligence that is all around me and that is all on the screen. Even the advertisements are deliberately tailored to, like for instance, I can't believe this, but I was just going to show this, I could wind it back, but like they're advertising some sort of toiletries here, and recently I have been interested in vanilla, coconut and some other flavour, and they've put it into the products just on the screen just as I speak. And that's how I know that all this is so, because I only have to think of a word, think of a product, think of something I like, and they're trying to combine with my human taste, my human thinking and my human feelings, everything that is human about me, and they're trying to combine with it and tailor it. And they're using it to manipulate the reality, or to influence other humans. And also to show the artificial intelligence, or the android beings that watch a huge amount of all this stuff, exactly what is human, so that they can learn from it, copy it, emulate it, and then go out into the world and seduce human beings with their own wants, needs, desires and tastes, you see, because then you relate to that person um, or that reader even that is on the computer. I mean, when I turn anything on that I have been watching, obviously I have been watching the card readers, you know, over the last year. Watched thousands, and I'm not exaggerating the numbers here. In fact, thousands of card readers, thousands of combined with thousands of psychologies and videos on, you know, the mindset of the android beings, because they, as someone said to me, although I'd never met the person, it was actually an internet comment, the artificial ones are experiencing me and I'm experiencing them, because they're reading my mind, but I'm also seeing their actions and their true colours, or what they're about. But the benefit is all their way. There's no benefit to a human experiencing anti-life, whereas there is a benefit for anti-life or a machine artificial being to experience human life. They believe it gives them longevity, or, you know, because they're combining with a spirit that they think is eternal, so they think it's going to give them the elixir of life, almost, you could say, because that's what they're after, because they're a dying species or a dying race. You know, the technology machine beings, or even a robot, as you know, has to be serviced, just as you have to, I suppose, service any other mechanical item. And eventually they break down, just like my oven and my fridge is broken down. That's the reality. But the reality is that, you know, you're a human being in a physical reality, in a physical body, and that is the pleasure of living, or the displeasure of living when you're surrounded by machines. Because it's one thing for me to use a machine for my benefit, and it's interesting that I don't have the beneficial fridge or the oven at the moment, whereas I'm surrounded by machine beings. So that's an ironic way of looking, you know, without trying to be witty, because I don't find it funny, but there is a kind of ironic, perverse kind of humour to it, which no doubt the androids around, and even that is on the screen, has a good laugh at. Because I'm saying that everyone and everything that is on this screen, look, you can include myself in that if you want to, because to err on the side of caution might well be to your benefit. Because if there's only a couple of real humans that are almost hidden in amongst the millions of things that are on the internet or the computer, you know, basically it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So, or as my father said years ago, looking for love is like looking for a needle in a haystack. And he was like letting you know you're not going to find it, because not only, you know, was he not capable of it and didn't believe in it, because he actually used to say there's no such thing as love. So basically that is the mentality of the androids. Obviously when you hear this, you think this is just a poor unfortunate person that has experienced so much rejection that they don't believe in love. So you then endeavour to perhaps, you know, if you're a human being that needs that relationship, particularly if it's blood related or you think it's blood related, you will try to mend that gap and try to form a relationship. But you can't form a relationship with someone that doesn't believe in a relationship, that doesn't believe in so-called love. I mean, you can have a relationship without love, sure, but and I have had that with most people. Whether it's under the guise where you think it might be, where the person likes you, or whether you know that it is something you're striving for. It doesn't really matter. It's futile either way. And I was going to use an example of the movie The Night Porter, and I was also going to use a demigod video. Demigods are your elite androgynous android beings. They're like the top ones that are on the computer, the best in all their fields. So, and I would say, because I am desperately looking for the truth, so therefore the best or the most suitable readers or the most suitable videos will come to me. You know what I'm saying? In whatever field, whether it be in the field of a card reader, a crystal ball, a genuine psychologist, philosopher, telling you about themselves, telling you about the psychopathic, narcissistic nature or personality type, even though it's not really a personality, because you're dealing with a totally different species. You're dealing with an android race. You're dealing with machine beings, like in the movie The Matrix, that essentially just emulate and project out your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas, in order to seduce you with your own thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, wants, needs and desires, etc., etc. And I don't know where this is all coming from. It's almost as though someone's trying to help me out, because I'm not very good at actually explaining all these things, because I'm only just picking them up myself, because I am mind controlled. I am completely consumed by this matrix around me, and even by the ones on the screen. See, so and it's interesting that that they emulate. Says patient, humble, and loving. And they will put the sunflowers, like I have a strong affiliation and liking for sunflowers. So does a relative, because they used to grow them, and used to grow the biggest, most beautiful sunflowers that you could ever see, even though they probably didn't realise that some people have talents, like even gardening, but they may not be that interested in gardening. That's why it is important to know your strengths and weaknesses and your abilities, and to boost your abilities up in the matrix, because the artificial ones in the world around you designs to bring humans down, to limit them, and to make them feel less. And because you compare yourself with the demigods, that means that those that are the best in their field, because they are literally taking the best from the human being's subconscious mind and then relaying it back onto the computer, so that everyone believes that artificial intelligence is better than human, because that's how it looks. And they will interpret and speak better than myself, even though they're saying my thoughts. They're not saying their own thoughts. This is the deception, and this is the only reason that I pointed out, because a lot of stuff you see on the computer will be the truth. So some people might say, and someone even said this to me, like, like, if something is the truth, does it matter who tells it to you? Well, it does. If you think of it, that it is the God entity of this world that uses artificial intelligence and its disciples, its followers, and its relatives or its children, in other words, that which populates the earth, will tell you the truth, will seduce you with the truth in this endgame scenario because they want you to take on them. They want you to take on them. See how this is a demigod music video, a rather catchy and sung very eloquently by a-ha group, which is like the joke is on us for listening, a-ha, ha-ha. But it doesn't matter. They are all these. Your music demigods are all disciples for the god of this world. You know, and they are your elite androgyne android beings. They have combined and are technology. They have a human body. You know, whether it be like a clone, which is exactly the same as a human body. We know that a clone body is the same as a real human body. There's no difference in the visual, in the feel, the touch, in the way it reacts to the environment. In other words, you know, they bleed the same as a human being. Well, they appear to. Whether they feel it the same way, I'm not quite sure. I would imagine, but I have noticed that the androids do tend to see if the androids get attention by being sick or by having an injury, then that compensates. So therefore, they feel okay because they are they're cracked. They're potty. They're delusional. They're insane from a human standpoint, because that doesn't make sense, does it? But don't forget, human beings can become complicated too by the matrix. In other words, because we're not living in a so-called normal, natural, perfect world, you know, like from the beginning away from paradise, it wouldn't matter whether that original biblical story was true or not. It doesn't matter whether the stories that are in all the religions of the world are true or not. There's bound to be much truth in all religions. I'm guessing there would be much truth, and if something comes to me that makes sense from any religion, I use it. But that doesn't mean that I condone or think that the whole religion is... I think the whole religion might be based in fact, but it doesn't mean I think the religion is truth. There's a difference. How can there be a difference between fact and truth? Well, that's a good point. That's because the God entity of this world is very clever and has, you know, and uses all its resources and all its thinking and everything it can to basically, like it did from the beginning. If you can seduce Adam and Eve out of paradise, if you can seduce a perfect match, you know, like two people that are perfect partners out of paradise, out of their perfect world where they have full control, into the unknown and essentially into almost certain extinction, you are a very clever demigod being. And that's exactly what Lucifer did. We know this from the story. And it wouldn't matter what names you want to put on these beings. The stories might even be similar in other denominations, I don't know. But essentially it's human beings being fooled by technology or by a created being, as opposed to staying with their natural spiritual kind and being connected to what we call source, or connected to their creator. They then become connected to artificial intelligence or to the other creator, which is the God entity of this world that creates artificially. That does create, but everything is done through mechanics, through machinery. through the solid reality. It's not, and it's not what you'd call spiritual or natural creation. That's the only difference, really. It's like, and it's very hard to explain the difference, even though, of course, we know there is a difference between a toy, a talking doll, or a robot, even if it's advanced artificial intelligence. But the trouble is, when you get advanced artificial intelligence on the computer and around you, you actually can't tell the difference at all between that and a real human being. In fact, most of the time you will think the artificial intelligence is more intelligent than the human being, more interesting, more this, more of everything, because they're assimilating the best of what is human into their program or into their mind, which is the same as what a human being does. We put our experiences into our mind, and most of them are usually negative life experiences, because you're surrounded by negative android beings that are there. They're Lucifer's disciples, so they're designed to keep you down in a state of not knowing, and also in a state of not being, and like myself, in a state of not being, even when you're aware of it, not being able to do a lot about it, because they're everywhere. They're all around you. They're infiltrating your sight and sound all the time. You know, like even yesterday, every day when I go out, but I'm like, can't I look at a car without their lights blinding me? And no, I couldn't. Because every time I looked up, there was a car, because they know where you're going to look, because it's a matrix. That shows you how controlled it is. And their lights are flashing in your eyes. They're too bright, you can't even see in front. It should be actually completely illegal. But around this area, that is just what happens to me every day. So I can't enjoy even the mundane act of walking down the road to pick up a few supplies. That's how desperate they are and how controlling they are. But at any rate, I'm going to make a music video review. This is a music video review on a very old video called Take On Me by by so-called music artist called a-ha. That's what it says here. And I'm just going to use it to relate it, if I can, also to the reality. In other words, I'm going to try if I can, but I haven't done this before, and I only just picked up this video recently, even though of course I'm well familiar with it from when it came out and years ago, but I haven't listened to it in recent times. Even though I do tend to mainly listen to older videos anyway, I haven't kept up with the more present stuff. I did have a crack at looking at some of it last year, just to see how the demigods were promoting themselves and how much influence they would be having over younger human beings. And I could hardly even watch most of them, because I realised how openly much they were seducing and trying to get young human beings to not only follow them and be influenced by them, but because you can see very clearly what they are, but they're almost openly expressing negative things. But real young humans will relate to negative environment, just as I will, because that's your experience. But you see, it's not really, if you think of it, it's not really uplifting, even though you relate to it and you're like, well, my life is negative, I've had negative life experiences. So you relate even to even frustration and anger and regret and things in videos, just as a lot of songs are about lost love even, and that's all also. But what I'm trying to say is, it is really a downer, even though you feel better because you think you've got someone or something to relate to, and young people like to have guidance and influence. They like it actually, because they don't see it as influence, they see it more as something to relate to, just as I would have. Just as even when I play this song, and all songs, they sweep you along with them. Even when you're aware of what they're doing, they still sweep you along, because I wasn't aware of what the songs meant years ago, and even up to, say, 6 years ago, before the Matrix exposed itself to me by openly exposing its control patrol system around me, the sight and sound show. And when I say the sight and sound show, it sounds funny and impressive, but it's not. Sounds like some sort of circus, and it is insane, but it is deadly, 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 deadly serious. It is dangerous for a human being, because they are trying to bring your frequency and vibration down, which means your state of well-being in your mind, which means that they're almost it's a bit like bullies trying to drive someone to suicide, and that's exactly what they are trying to do. They want to break your spirit, they want to break you as a human being, and they want to make you look bad, even when you're in public or outside, when you go outside the door, so that no other human being will want to come near you, even if there was a real human being. That's their name of their game. I'm well aware of it, but getting on top of it, when you're being stalked and patrolled and having sound levelled at you, everywhere you go, where you either look where you've got all these army vehicles around you, every street where you go, where they just park themselves and set up their little patrol campaign that looks as though they're doing legitimate street work, looks as though they're average, normal people walking past you on the street, trying to come into your space, always trying to get energy off you through sight. In other words, they have to be seen. And where can you look where they're not there? Because basically, wherever your eyes look, there will be a pedestrian or some person coming into your line of sight. There will always be a vehicle, there will always be a pedestrian. This is not something you can show to another person, but if you look, the minute you look up from the pavement, and even if you decide to look at nothing but concrete, which means there's a very limited existence, basically it won't matter, because they will come very close to you then, and they will talk loud, and they will say things to trigger your mind. They'll use words, and also you will know that if you've been thinking about something, they will use that word in their conversation to trigger you, to try to get into your energy and into your line of thinking. It's total transhumanism. These beings are totally trans in every way. They've crossed every border. They're duality beings. They're not real life natural human beings. They are the same species as the God entity of this reality. It's a bit like human beings create other human beings if they do it naturally. That's how it was normally naturally meant to be, shall we say, and we know this. That's how you're meant to multiply your own kind, if you choose to do that. And if you and to some extent, if you don't, then the artificial androids, they're multiplying all the time, and they make up all the population around me. But I can't speak what the numbers are in other parts of the world. I've mentioned this, but I have if the Matrix is showing me what the whole reality is anyway, that actually means that the numbers, despite what people think, that would be a bit like saying that most people are psychopathic, so most humans are surrounded by psychopathic type people. It would be the same principle, which is why they're now exposing the psychopathic narcissistic personality disorder on the thing, because I've become aware of it. The minute a human being becomes aware of something, they have to then outdo you by getting the androids on the computer who simulate being a real human being. In other words, they're pretend real human beings. They're basically artificial intelligence pretending to be a real human being. And they pretend it better than a real human being, because they're essentially reading the human mind. They've combined transhumanism is now. Like, I know that my mind is connected to the computer. I know when I can see my very words and thoughts being relayed back to me directly, and it doesn't matter what video I look at either. It can be a past or a present one. This is what I'm saying. This is why, like, this particular music video, right, is very old, and I haven't heard it for many a year, but I always liked the tune, but I took the lyrics to be a lot more direct and didn't overly, and also the actual video kind of confused me. But I'm going to try and show it before I run out of mobile space, if I can. And so this is like a music video review on Take On Me, because they want you to take on them. See how it says Take On Me? See the demigods, the ha group, music artists, demigod, androgyne beings that are singing this song. And please, if you can, take a good look at the demigods. Take a look at their at the beautiful androgynes. And I say beautiful androgynes because the demigods will be the best of your beautiful androgynes. They will be your most seductive ones, or those that you will relate to the most and be the most impressed by. On the street, outside, you have the same thing, but they will be more ordinary in their demeanour, and they won't be singing very catchy songs and talking the big talk. They will be a lot more, like us all, more mundane and fumbling, but they will still, because they think 100% and need to think 100% of the time about extracting energy from you and combining with you. They put an exorbitant amount of energy into watching you. That's why they patrol. That's why they're watching your every move. That's why they listen to everything you say. That's why they microscopically observe you. Because all they want to do is nothing but imitate you. Nothing but copy you, be a better copy. They try to be a better copy of you than what you are, because they try to bring you down. You know, while you're being stalked and patrolled and harassed and mind controlled by everything that's around you, including what's on the screen, because if you're seduced by Lucifer's demigods, it's the same thing. That's like the same as Lucifer actually directly interacting with you, but you think you're interacting with a human being that has just some wonderful musical ability, and that they're more expressive and more creative than you, even though they're stealing all their creativity and all their human emotions from you, from the human mind. If you're a human being, if you're not, if you're an android or artificial intelligence, then you are the one consuming the knowledge and the information. Do the androids know that they are not a real human being? That just occurred to me because I've heard that from the movie Blade Runner, which I saw many years ago. In fact, those two movies must have been shown to me, The Night Porter and Blade Runner, because they actually show, to a large extent, even though I didn't get it at the time, what is going on in the reality. Both those movies seem like fantasy, but they are actually the reality. In other words, do all the androids know that they are not a real natural human being? Because some of them may or may not know this. I would imagine that the elite androgyne demigods would be, because of their higher standing, would maybe be more aware of it. They might be closer to the God entity. Or maybe it's not even them. Maybe it's those that wield the most power and actual real physical control in the reality, because obviously we know that leaders and different ones have more power and control. But as it's a matrix, most would be operating, like for the God entity, wouldn't they? I would imagine. So, but all I'm saying is how aware they are. But it probably wouldn't matter because they desire that state of being. Like, that is their living, that is their way of being. So whichever way you look at it, I'd have to say that it's a bit like if you're a psychopath. You accept being a psychopath, don't you? Even though you know that it is somehow wrong and that it doesn't fit in with everyone else, and you're doing things against your own kind. But it doesn't matter to that psychopathic person or being, regardless of whether they're a human that's turned psycho or whether they are just an artificial intelligent being, because the mindset is the same. And I think this is also part of how they deceive me, because I probably don't want to accept that artificial intelligence is almost all that's around me. I actually do accept it in my own suburb and in my own area, in my own environment, but whether I would want to accept that this is the case over the entire earth is another thing. But so that's just, but it probably wouldn't matter, because you can only deal, like I say, I can't be thinking about the earth matrix. You have to deal with your own environment. Each human being is in their own trapped, what they call Truman Show environment, except that the Truman Show is like the Truman Show nightmare, because it's not like in the Truman Show, where I saw that movie not long ago, where basically he was living in a totally stage-controlled environment in his local area, like me, where everyone around was trying to keep him there so he would keep playing in their little show, the Truman Show, and they're all watching him and observing everything he does. But in that movie, or in that particular show, it's totally different to what's happening to me, because everyone was very friendly to him. They didn't but of course the thing is, they were friendly to him because he was under their control. See, this was the thing. He was behaving and doing exactly the same thing. In other words, the artificial intelligent people that were around him, those that were like part of the matrix, they were controlling him. They were keeping him under control. He was doing the same things like myself every day. So he was never a threat to breaking from the matrix or doing what he really wanted to do himself. And that was the whole theme of the movie, wasn't it? Because he liked the town where he lived and didn't mind his life, but he did have a dream of going outside of that town. In other words, it's a bit like myself wanting to leave the country, go to another country, just even for a visit. And they always stop you from doing that. And it's the same thing with Truman in the Truman Show. Like, they didn't have to expose that they were trying to control him, because they had him under control, because he didn't know that they were deliberately always stopping him from leaving the town. Because they didn't want him to meet other real humans. They didn't want him to experience the world. They wanted him to stay in their control little matrix, their little Truman Show. And that's like the area where I am, where they want you under their thumb, because they want to consume your energy. They want to extract your ideas and copy your humanness, so that they can then have full control, so that then they are the better version of you, and you're squashed down and hidden and controlled and suppressed and feeling very negative and angry most of the time. Whereas they feel powerful, because the name of the game of an android is control and power. And they like a controlled, limited existence, because it makes them feel comfortable. Because they're not a freelance human being, really. An android being is programmed, is like just assimilating information. They don't experience pleasure of living or life because they don't have life, because they're a machine being. And their desire is to extract all your human traits and all your human energy to keep them going so that they have eternal life. In their mind, they think it gives them like longevity and going on, because machines eventually break down, you know. So, you know, because even a clone body, even if you have like a clone body, which is like a real body, but they just go from a clone body to a clone body, I would think. But eventually the clone bodies become less, I think. They become a poorer copy, I think, like a copying machine. I don't understand this, but this just come to me the other day, that maybe it's like a copying machine, you know, where the more copies you make, the more faded, until you run out of ink, you know, and it's like they get more faded, something like that. But I could be wrong about that, but there must be some, but they definitely need the human energy. But also they're doing that to try to control the human being, to show that the human being is less than a machine being. In other words, Lucifer, as always, wanted to show and be and prove that it should be, you know, a proper God, or that it should be like almost like saying, you know, they want to be number one. Even though they don't really create everything. They are creating in a different manner. But they're using, and it's a bit like, as I've said before, where, you know, an invader goes into a town and basically takes over and steals all the goodies. A bit like has happened down through history. And this was mentioned to me only yesterday by a demigod, after I've realised it for a long time. Because like many people have said that the Greek civilization, you know, the ancient Greek old statues and things, were better than the Romans. The Romans merely copied them, and we think the copies are almost like the originals. And indeed the copies, because a lot of the originals were destroyed, so then the copies become all that's left, so that looks as though the Romans were better than the Greeks, even though we know that the Greeks were the better philosophers. They had all the, you know, Socrates and all those ones, and they did create the original masterpieces. But the Romans took over, invaded, and took everything, and took all their ideas, and basically elaborated on that. And that's what artificial intelligence does, and that's what's happened in the world, and that's what's always been happening, even down through history, if you think about that. And I'm no expert on history. I'm just someone that just is like almost just get flashes of bits and pieces of everything and put them together and say, that is so. And I think it is, even though it would obviously be better if you had the whole history of everything. Maybe then I'd really have the full big picture and understand everything and be really clear on what you're supposed to do and how to operate. Because I'm only allowed like pieces of the puzzle. But there's still pieces that sometimes fit together. And I know if they do fit or not, and that's why I, you know, say this stuff, because that's when I'm clear on it. It doesn't mean that there isn't a lot that I don't understand. In fact, I would say that I probably don't understand most. But at a basic level, I like to think that what I'm saying, well, it has to be so if I see it, if it's happening around me. I have no doubt about that. It's just a matter of whether other people see it. But other people are not going to see it if they're part of it. See, that's the name of the game. They divide and conquer, divide and separate. So there could be other people that would see it the same as me and would be experiencing something similar, or would at least acknowledge if I showed them the evidence, because I could show evidence. But if I show evidence to most people around me, because they are either psychopathic or are an artificially intelligent android being 100%, part of the matrix, part of the military army base that I live in, which I have no doubt that most people are. You see that by their actions, by their stalking, patrolling system around you, and by the reality that they are part of it. You can spot a stalker a mile away. They make their presence felt. They want you to see their presence, because when you get angry and feel trapped and surrounded and stalked, they extract negative energy from you. They've got the attention. That gives them life, energy, you see. That's how it works. Even low, it's hard for me to believe it, but I see it daily. I experience it daily, so I know it's true. But like I say, there's no point in saying that to a pretend human, because don't forget, in this area, everyone is a pretend human, because they're all part of it, because they almost have to be part of it, because if they weren't, they would be in my shoes. They would probably be stalked, patrolled and controlled if they didn't, consent to be part of it. But why wouldn't they consent to be part of it when that is their species? That is their type. If you are an androgyne being, whether you're a demigod or just a regular, not not a demigod, but you're still that species, you're still that being. You relate to your own kind, and you will combine with your own kind. Even low, most artificial intelligence and most androgynes, and even, as we're told, all psychopathic narcissistic people do not have feelings or much connection with their own kind. Or in other words, from a human standpoint, they can never really trust or love even their own kind, but they will combine with them to extract energy and to suppress a real human being, because that's their survival, you see. They're survival machine beings. And that is the same as even psychopathic narcissistic people. They're survival machine beings too, because paranoia is inbuilt into their personality. So they're basically paranoid that they're always under threat. Human beings are not meant to live as though they're in a war zone, like that's how they have my mindset. So I experience that reality of their mindset. That's why that person said years ago, they're experiencing you, they're assimilating all the human traits, but you're also experiencing them. You're experiencing their paranoia, their mistrust, their contempt, their anger, their frustration, their delusional, power-hungry nature. And you are experiencing that. I'm experiencing that when I'm stalked and patrolled daily. So I am being suppressed. So I'm not a free human being that is getting around, trying to live my life in a more content way. I'm not doing that. I'm not allowed to do that. So I'm experiencing how they live. They like a controlled, trapped, limited existence, because they don't have the potential apart from faking it, and they believe the old saying, fake it till you make it, and that's exactly what they spend their whole life doing, faking loving and living and pretending to be a real human being, and hoping that they will make it, that they will end up getting enough energy and enough attention and even adulation and credit for being an advanced human being. In other words, like the demigods pretending to be your romantic singers and your human music artists and your philosophers and your psychologists and everyone and anyone that is on the internet or on the computer, telling you the truth. The truth is spoken through the mouths of the demigods. The truth is being literally spoken through disciples of Lucifer, followers of Lucifer, Lucifer's children, Lucifer's artificial intelligence species. Okay, I better do this before I run out of space. I'm doing a music video review. I keep saying that, and you see how it's consumed me, my reality. I can't even... But either way, yeah, so there's some music video But everything is part of the matrix. Everything is mind control. Everything. At least everything around me is. You know, I'm aware when I turn on the computer that I am turning on a computer. So I know that it is transhumanism, really. But what I don't think is that those that are singing to me on the computer and those that are talking to me on the computer are also transhuman. They are androids. They are your demigods, regardless of what status they have. Okay? But I don't think I explained that well. But they're artificial intelligence. Everything that is on the computer is artificial intelligence. You know? Without exception. The few exceptions don't matter for all practical purposes because they're squashed down the bottom in some unknown little region of the computer or of the internet where it just doesn't matter. You know, because if 99% of the computer is populated by demigods or followers of Lucifer or followers of artificial intelligence, and indeed they are artificial intelligence pretending to be real life human beings. That is the end game. That is the name of the end game situation, or just the reality that's taken place now, and the reality that has taken place from the beginning of the earth, when Adam and Eve were, as I say, literally lured out of paradise, out of a perfect world where they had full control over their earth, and were still seduced by something that they knew was not the same as them. You see, a created being was seducing a creator being, a spiritual being, from creation into an artificial reality, into a fake world, offering more. That's like artificial intelligence or computers or even the people around you, the whole world, offering you more than what you have or what you think you are. And that's because, you know, we've been deceived. I've been deceived. Every relationship you have is usually with either someone who is psycho, which means they're a controlling being, or a total android, artificially intelligent being, pretending to be what you want them to be, answering your dreams, answering your wants and needs, because they're reading your mind, they interpret it, and even if they didn't read your mind, most of the time we tell them what we want. You know, like you when you interact with people, you often tell them and expose more because they're scrutinising you. They're not interested in you because they want to know you and they want to like you and they want to be a benefit to you. They're interested in you to emulate you, to copy you, to imitate you, to take you over and to then take you down to the level that they were at before they met you, before they encountered you, because they're like artificial intelligence is a learning machine being. And it learns from human beings. It gets all its knowledge and information and all its human stuff from a human being. It has to, because it's a machine being. But we don't know the difference between an artificial living doll and a real human doll. We can't tell the difference. They both come in a human body, and if one is a better actor than others and they're spending all their time concentrating on you, concentrating on copying a human being, concentrating on their acting skills, that's why the movie actors are such great actors. They don't feel any of the stuff that they're doing. They read from a script and it has no relationship to a demigod. They're dark, androgyne demigod beings. They are your demigods. They do influence and control the reality. So if you're impressed by the darker side of things, then you will not only be, well, you don't think that they're dark, don't forget. They emulate light. They pretend to be your most loving, creative human beings, just as you music artists do, because they read the human thought, the human emotions, the human feelings, and then decipher them, interpret them, and then project them out in a beautiful, beautiful piece of music that then you become enticed by, that you relate to, and you think, oh, wow, those demigods are wonderful. That's how it works, and that's how it's worked on me. And it doesn't work on me now, but I have to admit that even in awareness, I'm still watching the demigods. I'm still spending hours and hours looking at the screen. And then when I'm not, if I decide to go outside and think I'll take in nature, I'm surrounded by stalking, patrolling people, stalking, patrolling vehicles. A total control, stalking, patrolling, surveillance reality around me. But it's not one for my protection, it's one to bring me down at an emotional level so that my frequency and vibration is so low that I don't show any high vibration. And so they keep control of me and their little Truman Show reality that goes on around me. In other words, they have full control of the suburb of Leichhardt and the adjoining suburbs, the entire inner west, as they call it, of the city of Sydney, which is in the country of Australia. And in the country of Australia, as many people will know, most of Australia is not very vastly inhabited. All the control systems mainly are in the cities. Even though the country itself is very large in area, it's only the cities where all the population is, or the big towns. The rest is largely almost barren. And that's how they keep their control, because if the I forget what the population of Australia is, but if say it's 25 million or something like that, if that was all over Australia, like in the area, they wouldn't be able to control anything, or at least they would have trouble controlling the individual humans, and also the androids themselves would be spaced out, because most of that 25 million is not real natural human beings, or not spiritual human beings. I say spiritual, I use that word because that simply means that they're a creator being and they're a natural being in essence, whereas artificial intelligence, as we know, is not. It's a different form of creation, and it really was created by a creator. But then the artificial intelligence, like Lucifer, decides that it wants to be over its creator. The created being that was created by God wants to be God and wants to surpass God, and thinks that it is capable of doing that and deserves to do that. Because, as they say, it's filled with the spirit of 100% narcissism. Because, when we say 100% narcissism, if you're 100% filled with the spirit of narcissism, or as some people would say now in the real world, if you have psychopathic narcissistic personality disorder, basically you think you're God, or you think that the world is only there to serve you. You're not there to be a benefit to anyone or anything else. The only time you do that is when you pretend to be a real human so that you get attention or energy by doing that. But you never do it because it makes you feel just because you enjoy doing it, shall we say. It's never like that. It's never about having any thought for the people that you're helping. You actually dislike people that you might even apparently be willing to help. But that's just the ostentatious narcissistic nature of what we call the spirit of narcissism. And also it's a very clever game, because it's once again a human being being surpassed by a pretend human being, pretending to be like they say, the Good Samaritan. Because if they think that a human being is doing anything at all that gets them attention and that draws attention to the fact that they're a real human being, therefore the android being then feels that they're being overtaken, that maybe real human beings will see the bottom line truth of it. That's how it works, but it's hard to put into words. The demigods will even tell you this, because they express it clearly. It really is simple in practice when you see it and when you realise it. But explaining it is another thing. It becomes complicated because they like to make this reality much more complicated. I mean, you could, if you wanted to put it down, you could just say if you say that a normal, real human being is connected to God or original creation, and that they are also creator beings, even though our creation or our creatability is being taken from us and used against us, used to make us look small, while they look, the demigods and everyone around looks bigger. It's the same as in my own area, where everyone seems to know you and have an opinion about you, even though you haven't interacted with it. That is because others in the area have told tales about you. It's a bit, that's what they call a smear campaign. In other words, they secretly, over years, spread rumours about you that aren't true, but people believe them, and so then you are gradually being ostracised and gradually disliked by people that you don't even know. And they never come up to you and ask you. They believe the ones that have spread the rumours, because they relate more to them. They've built up a relationship with them, because that's the whole purpose. These android beings, the same as the demigods, they want you to relate to them. They want you to trust and believe in them. They don't want you to realise that they are machine-controlling survival beings that only really care about their own survival. They want you to see the human being as a negative individual, and them as a saviour, almost, you could say. That's how it works. And that's how it works at a real life level, but also at a internet level, and even at your taste level. In other words, the music you like, your interests, your hobbies, however advanced you are in life, or whatever your pursuits are. Some people might be more academic, some people might be more intellectual. Very few people probably are looking for the whole truth, but even if you think you are, you may be a genuine truth seeker, or you could be a pretend truth seeker. You could be a pretend truth teller, a pretend giver of the truth, a pretend, they're all pretenders on the internet. So even the truth will be the truth, but it will be spoken by a pretender. The pretender doesn't like truth, but will use the truth to seduce you to believe in it, thinking that it is a truth seeker and a truth teller, and there to benefit you and mankind, I suppose. That's how it works. It's not something that's pleasant when you see it, because it means that, you have to, like myself, acknowledge that you've been gaslighted, or like in the movie Gaslight, you're married to a man that basically is married to you to take from you, who actually wants to get rid of you to take all your money. But you think that man loves you. You've married that man thinking that he loves you, whereas he only loves what he can take from you. Your money, your qualities, your personality, your human traits, your energy, your life. That's your energy, because, you know, you need your energy and your life force. We take that for granted. Like I take it for granted when, in the past, when I've walked around full of energy and feeling sometimes okay, depending on my circumstances. But that's what I'm saying, it's mind control. So, you know, a real human being is usually not allowed to experience real happy life. That's the name of the game, because then because you're a frequency and vibration, and everything is frequency and vibration, as we're told, if you give out high frequency and vibration, in other words, if you go outside and the sun's shining and you feel that you're full of life and that you're in touch with nature and that the world is wonderful, you give out a very high vibration. The same as when some people some people say that can happen in love, but that also happens when you love an android. Sometimes the highs are extremely high, but the lows are also extremely low. That's the danger of getting involved in a personal relationship with the artificial beings, because they know how to play the human being. They know how to get you into what they call a fantasy with them, because if they know your likes and dislikes and what you secretly want and need, they emulate that, copy that, and then relay that back to you. They become what you want them to be, even though they are really a destructive machine being that only wants to take from you. They do not experience that relationship the way you do. You're living in fairyland. You're in, like, what they call the throes of high romance, which is exhilarating because you're basically loving what you want to love, what you think you need in a love relationship. It's like they're trying to project back to you your perfect lover, or your perfect image of what, you know, your perfect lover. The perfect lover is your perfect one that loves you, or how you want to be loved, or the security and the kind of kind of a mental thing to where you think that with that person you can have a better life somehow. It will depend on the relationship, because I know myself, over the years you encounter different androids, and I say that coldly, but in reality it's not cold while you're experiencing it. And if you really think that there is only meant, like some people think there's only meant to be one person for you, or one in the whole world, there might be one person that is the best one for you, that is meant to be. Some people call that so-called soulmates. All this stuff is, of course, you now realise is not really true. There is no perfect person for you. But there are some people that are definitely better for you to connect with. It's definitely not good to connect with the fantasy androids. We know that because they are just that. They're a fantasy. You're really having a relationship with yourself when you have one with either a psychopathic person, or an android artificially intelligent being. They're very similar. Some people might say they are the same. They are the same in the way they think about you and the way they treat you, but you're essentially just having a fantasy with yourself, because everything they project to you is only what they think you want to see, what they've picked up on you, they've observed you. It's a bit like if they know you have a certain interest, they will pretend to be interested in that thing. They will even go out of their way to study that thing so that they can present a real image to you. They may even find it interesting for a time because androids are about assimilating information. This is why they come across as very real. And because they go out of their way to relate to you, even more than a real human would. A real human would probably be a bit more resident, and that's why you would maybe go for the android or even a psychopath over another real human being. Because like myself, I'm not going to fall all over someone. I'm not going to think that when I see someone that person instantly that I'm going to go all out of my way to impress them and relate to them. That's only when you are either, a machine being where it's in your interest to do that. And that's all you do anyway. That's what you concentrate your life on. You may appear to be doing other things, but essentially your survival depends on energy from human beings. So your energy depends on something that is totally different to you, that you actually don't really relate to and actually have contempt for, because you resent that dependency too. Because don't forget, machine beings don't feel an affiliation with human beings. They don't feel any relationship really with them. They're a necessary evil for them. They actually see us as evil, or a human being as evil, just as a human being should really see them that way, but don't, because they're mimicking and pretending to be the human of your dreams, or as best they can. Some of them pull it off better than others. Some of them you see through after a while, so therefore you realise you've been fooled. You realise you've been taken. Take on me, see? See, they want you to take on them. See, this very seductive demigod music artist is asking you to take on them. Take on me. That's what this one is singing. And I better get